And we know the fact of the matter today is that all of them have died in the first century. So we have to accept Jesus' words as either he came as he promised or he told a lie. And I can't accept that as a viable conclusion. The second concept is that either these people are still living today. So if we're still waiting on him to come, then they would still be alive. Sonny and Brimstone, I've just found you and am fairly new to the preterist view. I have grieved and am on my way to a new understanding. Thank you for your teachings. We appreciate you being here, Sonny and Brimstone, and delighted that you have discovered this study. And I'm sure that if you will continue in your pursuit, that you will find it very rewarding. It will answer many of your questions about the Bible and give you a peace that you perhaps have not known as you study the Word of God and understand everything that he has brought for us as you follow him in faith and obey him. Now, so let's take up one of the first concepts in understanding this. One, we are told that the death here, and this came up as a result of a debate that I had in the past, and also Blog Talk Radio interview or conversation that I had with another gentleman who we brought on as a guest. And now even in our Facebook discussions, we're still having this idea to surface. And what they're trying to say is that the coming that is mentioned, or the death that is mentioned in this text, is the second death. So let's see if we can support that from the scripture. Are we talking about the second death? Now, here's one thing that we know about the second death, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, just to talk about something that is understood and known about it. The second death occurs at the great white throne judgment. In other words, at the consummation, at the end, or what we would call the coming of the Lord. So that is the time that the second death would be manifested. And my computer is telling me that I'm having a camera problem, and so it is not working properly. And I have to apologize for that. I'm not sure what's going on with it, but it has just kind of killed over on me. All right. Now, so let's look at that. If this text is speaking of the second death, then I think we've got a different camera operating here, but that's okay. If the text is speaking of the second death, let's analyze what that would be saying. It would be telling us that some who stood with Christ would not experience the second death until he returned. All right? If we're going to accept that as the interpretation of the text, then we've got to draw it all the way out to see what that conclusion means, or what that analysis means. Because if it is talking about the second death, then what it means is some would experience the second death before Jesus returned. Now that creates a contradiction. And the contradiction is, as we said a moment ago, if the second death is at the time of the great white throne judgment, and you can read about that in Revelation chapter 20, and you can also read about it, I believe, in Revelation 21:8, where it again mentions the second death, but that's all in connection with the great white throne judgment. So that would mean that the great white throne judgment occurs before Jesus' return. And that is absolutely contradictory to Daniel 7 and Revelation 20, which are both the same context, talking about the same time. But here's what else it would mean if Christ, or rather, if the death in the text is the second death. If some would not experience the second death until Jesus returned, then it means that after he returned, the rest of them would experience the second death, because he simply said some will not die until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Well, that means that all of them would eventually die.
All right. That's where William Bell is failing at. And let's get into the text, because right now William Bell is in error, and it's kind of saddening that he fell away from the truth, if he ever was in the truth. But it sounds like he's been into preterism, or the covenant eschatology belief system, for at least 20 years. So let's get into Matthew 16 to 28. Then we could go to Revelation 21, 20 and 21, and we could go to Daniel, just to prove that some of those standing there that day will not taste of death, because until Christ comes back. Because what Christ is actually saying is, some are gonna die, and the other ones aren't gonna die. The way William Bell is reading it, like everybody is gonna die at some point. So he fails to substantiate that, or he fails to prove that he pretty much fails to prove. He's proven a case of death, but he fails to prove life. And we're about to see. All right, Matthew 16 and 28. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So when you jump up to so basically it's saying that some aren't gonna die. Some are gonna die, and to me, some are not gonna die. And I'm saying that because when you read when you basically start at let's see here, verse 24 at Matthew 16, you see, then Jesus said unto his disciples, because basically like William was saying that Peter, he didn't want to see anything happen to Christ. So Christ is pretty much, telling him to stay focused. And when you read verse 24, you see, then Jesus said unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Okay, so if you save your life, how can you lose it? And whosoever would lose his life for my sake shall find it. So right here, Christ is talking about the before and after. So he's saying in that Christ-like walk, some are going to lose their life, but they will live on. And those that want to save them lives before Christ returns, they're going to lose their life when Christ returns. And it's very clear. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. So if he saves his life, when is he going to lose it? He's going to lose it at the second death. Whosoever will lose his life before the second death, for my sake, shall find it after the second death. So that means once the second death comes, those who lost their life for Christ would live beyond the second death. And then he's going on to say, for what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? We're just talking about the second death. Because you could deny Christ and gain the whole world, but you could lose your soul afterwards. So you could gain the world, and then once this world passes, you lose everything. And that includes your life. So William Bell, his understanding is so carnal that he's stuck on those standing there that day actually living. And it's basically saying that some there that are standing there that day are going to die the second death. Now, that right there might be a hard pill to swallow. Why would some of the disciples lose their life, or those that are gathered around at that day, why would they lose their life in a second death? And that's another discussion. But whoever denied Christ will lose their life. So now let's go to Revelation 21. Well, let's finish reading. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? The soul is what dies the second death. Okay? The soul lives on after you die. So everything right here is pointing to the second death, which William Bell seems to conveniently not want to understand. And let's read on. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Okay, that is pivotal. And I think it goes to Revelation 21. When a man is rewarded according to his works, that means he would either live on after the second death or he would die. So some of those that are standing there today are going to die based upon their works, and some are going to live. It's not saying that some are going to die before Christ comes and the others are going to die after Christ comes. Because when are they going to live, William Bell? That's the question. When are they going to live? You're talking about die and die, but there's no everlasting after in your conclusion. And if there is, I would like for you to clear it up. Okay, so now when you see from Matthew 16, and I think it was 27, they would be judged according to their works. This is what it's saying in Revelation 20. It wasn't 21, it's 20 and 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life. Okay. So the book of life is those that are going to be there everlasting after. And some of those standing there that day, names were going to be written in the book of life. And some of their names are going to be in the book of death. Okay? And it says, and the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. So, what William Bell is failing to understand is when you see in Matthew 16 and 27, let's go there. When you see, then shall every man be, hold on. Verse 27, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. So this is talking about the second death, because when you read Revelation 20 and 12, it's talking about the second death. It's talking about everybody that was there was dead. Let's go back. And I saw the dead, great and small. So this is talking about everybody that is dead as far as the first death. Stand before God, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. So, according to William Bell, everybody wasn't going to be dead when they got judged according to their works. But when you read Revelation 20 and 12, it says, I saw the dead. It didn't say I saw the living. It said I saw the dead, small and great, stand before the Lord. So now William Bell, he has a lot of explaining to do, because how is he relating Matthew 16 and 27, those being rewarded according to their works? And in Revelation 20 and 12, they're talking about the dead. So, by his own understanding, those that were standing, those that were still living when Christ came back, they couldn't have been a part of this conversation then. And if they weren't a part of this conversation, then they couldn't be judged upon their works, which would exclude them from the book of life. Because some of them were not dead according to William Bell. So if they weren't dead, then they couldn't be judged with those things that were written in the book. So William Bell, he has a really unique way of looking at end time prophecies, but he's in such error, it doesn't even make sense. And then you could pretty much go to Revelation 21 and see the same thing. Let's see. And basically, when you read Revelation 21 and 7, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. So basically, when all these Christians say, yeah, they're saved, they're false prophets, because even in Revelation 21 and 7, it's saying, he that overcometh. How can you be saved and you haven't overcometh anything? You haven't overcometh everything when you still got breath. If you overcometh unto your last breath, then you overcometh to the end. And you see right here it says, he that overcometh shall inherit all things. So even those fake Christians, those fake black Christian apologists, white Christian apologists that say they are saved now, they're false prophets, they're liars, and they're deceiving. But back to William Bell, these are the things that they're going to be judged on according to their works. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with brim and fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So, as you see, those that are going to be judged are those that are among the dead that already died. So when you read Revelation 20, this is after all the wars, everything. There's nothing left. And everyone is dead. And I mean, it's clear right here. I mean, it says, and I saw the dead. It doesn't say Revelation 20 and 12. It says, I saw the dead. Where's the living, William Bell? Where's the living? Now let's go to your Daniel 7 and go ahead and debunk that so we can end this video. All right, and now reading Daniel 7 and 25, it says, and he shall speak great words. And this is talking about the fourth beast, just to make sure. Verse 23 of Daniel 7. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of his kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So the first 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. What does that sound like? That sounds similar, like he's trying to use end time prophecy to change the times of when all of this was going to happen. And right now, you see that the laws are being changed. Homosexuals, they're able to get a pastor to so called marry them, which marriage is between man and a woman. But they're changing the laws to mean marriage is a bond between 2 lovers that is sanctified in front of a governing body. So now the laws are changing the meanings of actual marriage. Before maybe 50 years ago or even 10 or 20 years ago, sodomy was a federal crime, and it might still be. But they're changing those laws to make sodomy acceptable. So this right here is destroying William's whole argument. And they shall be given into his hand until a time, in times and the dividing of times. So the whole world, even the saints, are going to be at the mercy of the beast. The saints are going to get worn out, but they're not going to give up. The saints are going to overcome. They're going to be obedient to the end. And the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it until the end. So eventually, the kingdom is going to be snatched from the beast. And when it's snatched from the beast, it's going to be nothing but death and disaster. And that takes you to Revelation 20 and 12, when they saw all the dead. When John saw the dead. And then when you read verse 27, and the kingdom and dominion and greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. And this everlasting kingdom will be given to those that are written in the book of life, that lives on after the second death. And all dominion shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my congregation much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. So at the end, when this heaven and earth and this kingdom right here, this earth that we're living in now, if you read Revelation 20 and 12, there's not going to be a living soul once this kingdom is taken from the beast. There's not going to be a living soul. And this would trouble Daniel, because just imagine this whole world, nothing but dead bodies and carcasses. And once the last person take their last breath, or after the last breath is taken, the books are going to be open and judgment is going to be passed, and those that ever overcame will live past the second death. So William Bell, your understanding is heretical. Well, I wouldn't even call it heretical, because that's what they called the disciples and apostles, heretical. They called heresy, they called sound doctrine actually heresy. So I'm trying to use that in a different way now, because to me, heresy is sound doctrine, because that's what the apostles were accused of. But your doctrine, the preterist, end times, eschatology, covenant eschatology, is a complete disaster, and it doesn't have any legs to stand on. And right now you just been G checked. Your whole preterist argument hinges almost on Matthew 16 and 28. And then you have 14 more points that you posted in a Facebook group that I want to deal with. And I will eventually when I get time. And I'll go through each point one by one, if it's in the plan from the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And if it comes upon me to do it, each one of those points will be taken and thoroughly explained to show that your error and the preterist doctrine is full of error, and it's a cancer to those that are seeking the truth. And with that, G Checker signing off, saying shalom.